G'day folks, how you doing? Welcome back. Neil Kelleher here from The Amazing Chase, and we're moving on now. This is episode 13 of the series, and I'm now going to tell you about the 5 international drug entrapment attempts that they perpetuated against me over the course of this saga. Okay, and I'm just going to give you a quick summary of each of those events. All right, and then I'm going to do detailed individual episodes for each one of those events with all the full details. Okay, so this is just a quick rundown of all 5, so you know exactly what went down and where it went down and when. Okay, so the first one was back in 2019 in Palm Cove, Australia, in far north Queensland, and that was on the 24th of May 2019, where they tried to entrap me as a drug dealer. All right, I wasn't. Okay, I bought some drugs from a friend of mine, and she was then going to try and claim that I was selling them to her because she owed me some money. She needed to pay me back some money, and the police had her try and pay it into my account. And if she'd been successful in that, the undercover cops that were outside my apartment at the time waiting to pounce would have raided me and then claimed that I was selling it to her. But that didn't work, okay? I knew what was going on. I didn't give her my bank account details. I didn't let her pay that money to me, and they didn't raid me, all right? So I survived that one, okay? Now, that was in 24th of May 2019. I got out of there, I got out of Australia shortly after that. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Something strange is going on. I knew they tried to pinch me, but I didn't really know why at that stage. I wasn't sure what it was about. I thought perhaps they were trying to get me to give them information about Leundy, but it wasn't that at all. They needed me to corroborate the information Undy had given them about other people and his suppliers. Okay, so anyway, so I got out there and I took off to Thailand in June because I used to go to Thailand a couple of times a year to train Thai boxing, and so I thought, well, this is a good time to get out of this place, and so I went to Thailand. All right, so I was in Thailand for about 6 weeks. I was popping around to a few different places in Phuket, and then I settled in a place called Nai Harn Beach in Phuket at the Nai Harn Resort. Okay, and this is when I started to get a sense of something strange going on. I started to feel like I was being followed around, and then one night they tried to gas me in my room. All right, so that was the first thing they did. Tried to knock out gas. It was tried to knock me out. I presume they were going to enter the room and plant drugs or something to that effect then, because that's what I think they were going to try and do. Okay, that failed. I caught them in the act and chased them off, and I've even got photographs of the motorbike they left behind. I've got pictures of the window frame they cracked open so they could put the hose in to gas me. Okay, so that was the first thing that happened. Okay, now let me just be crystal clear here. Okay, now this was not the Thai authorities. Okay, I've been traveling to Thailand for 13 years. I've never had a problem with Thai police in my life, and this is definitely not an attack against the Thai authorities in any way, shape or form. One thing the Thais do not tolerate, or 2 things they do not tolerate. Number 1, they don't tolerate drugs in their country. Number 2, they don't tolerate defamation or slander on the internet. Okay, so let me just make that point very crystal clear. This was not the Thai authorities. It was Melbourne Organised Crime Squad in conjunction with Interpol, in my opinion. Okay, they were literally on the ground in Thailand making these attacks against me. Okay, so it was not the Thai authorities. Yes, they had to have Thai approval. Yes, they may have had some assistance with some local Thai police, but it was not the Thais that did this. Okay, it was Melbourne Organised Crime Squad in conjunction with Interpol. Okay, so that was the first thing that happened, the gassing. All right, that didn't work. I chased them off. I knew they were there, so I pretended to go to sleep, and then I waited to see what would happen, because I could hear them outside. I waited to see what would happen, and then that's when I felt myself being gassed. So I jumped up and chased them off, and then managed to get myself together and recover from the gassing effects. All right. Anyway, so I moved from that room, which is room 12, to another room, which was room 19. Okay. Now the reason I stayed at that resort, because I thought to myself, better the devil you know, because I knew something was going on. I didn't know this was how these corrupt police operate at the time. I even thought perhaps of some sort of hit squad was after me, to be honest, because it was crazy what had happened, you know. So anyway, I moved to room 19. Okay, and now room 19, they cut a hole, like a little hole in the bathroom ceiling, for a peephole so that someone could watch me from room 20, see what I was doing in there. All right, so the guy that was in room 20 when I first moved in, they moved him out of that room. He told me they moved him out for some reason. I'm like, oh, that's strange. And then they pretended that room 20 was under maintenance, so that they're either their undercover operative or perhaps staff at the resort who they were using for these purposes could watch me. Okay, so what happened next was they sent a local working girl into the room with spiked methamphetamine to spike me. Okay, and then they were going to try and pounce on me and catch me with those drugs. Okay, now again, I knew, you know, something was funny was going on, and I also heard them in the ceiling. I could hear them moving around in the ceiling. So I was like, yeah, there's definitely something funny going on here. So I literally just grabbed my stuff, ran out of there, took off, and didn't come back for 2 days until I got the all clear from a local lawyer who I got involved. Okay, and made sure there were no police there looking for me. Okay, so basically what they tried to do there was send that girl in with the drugs, and then, you know, she'd leave them there, and then they would have caught me with the drugs. Okay, that didn't work, obviously. I went back there a couple of days later, got my stuff, and then took off out of there. All right, and that was, you know, failed entrapment number 2. I forgot to add, that was the 12th of August 2019 that went down. Okay, so 12th of August 2019. Okay, so we fast forward now to 2020. All right, I got out of Thailand. I've been to a few countries, been to the Philippines, been to the UK, been to the USA, and I'm now in the Dominican Republic. Okay, so Central America, Dominican Republic in January 2020. All right. It didn't take them long to set up on me there, so they set up on me just after my birthday, which was January the 12th, 2020, and from January the 12th, 2020 until about July the 5th that same year, so 6 months, they were all over me in Dominican Republic. All right, so there was tons of different stuff they tried there, but I'm just going to tell you about the main drug entrapment attempt. And that was in May 2020. All right, so what happened there was they had embedded an undercover operative by the name of Manuel into the building I was staying at. And he had made friends with my friend, the manager upstairs, a girl upstairs, and basically he set her up, like him and his team set her up, caught her with some cocaine, I'm presuming, and then forced her to work against me, the poor girl. It's another person I owe an apology to. Okay, I'm not going to name the building because the building belonged to a friend of mine, and a Canadian friend of mine, and another person I owe an apology to. And he told me, please don't involve me in this, and so I won't. Okay, you know, I'll keep. Obviously, I need to tell you what happened, but I don't need to reveal any details of the property. Okay, so unfortunately for her, she was forced to work against me for them. And what was going on there was they were supplying cocaine spiked with speed to me through a local dealer, okay? And then she was asking me for some of that cocaine, like if she could have some. I'm like, yeah, of course you can, all right? But she was taking it away upstairs, and then she was passing it back to Manuel, the copper, so that then they could try and catch me with that same cocaine and say that I was supplying it or selling it to her, okay? Now, I knew what they were doing, and I played along, obviously, and they never did catch me with any of that cocaine because I was stashing it in different places. And then I ran a reverse sting operation against them, whereby I told her, the manager, that I was going to put the cocaine in another room because I was paranoid. And then basically I caught them the next morning when they tried to catch me, because they went and checked that room and then they were waiting to pounce on me, but there was no cocaine in that room. And so I basically flushed them out and revealed them to me. Okay, so then I knew that she was involved, and I knew that they were there. I knew the van they were driving. Okay, so I knew everything that was going on. All right, so that failed. I never did. They never did catch me with any of that cocaine, obviously. So then I got out of there the following week, early June, and I wanted to get them away from my mate's building. I wanted to get them away from her, and because I knew they were going to keep coming after me. And they literally spent the next 5 weeks, from early June until July the 5th, chasing me all through the Dominican Republic, from Punta Cana to Bavaro to Sosua to Cabarete, back to Sosua, then to Santiago, and then finally to Santo Domingo. All right, the last actually they didn't follow me there because I went straight from Santiago to Santo Domingo airport and flew out of the country. All right, so they spent 5 weeks chasing me all through the Dominican Republic, breaking into my apartments, trying to get to me, trying to get to my evidence, and they failed. Okay. So that was the end of that entrapment attempt. Like I said, tons more stuff went down in Dominican Republic, and I'll cover that in future episodes. Okay. So I'd gotten out of the DR, I flew out the DR back into the USA, and then a couple of days there whilst waiting for a connecting flight back to the UK, and then boom, it was back to the UK in July 2020, and then a whole bunch of other stuff went down. And now we'll fast forward. Okay, so we'll fast forward from 2020, we fast forward to Mexico in 2021. All right, so we'll fast forward to October 2021 in Mexico. All right, this was the fourth drug entrapment attempt in Puerto Vallarta at a place called the Chanclas Hostel, CHAN class hostel in Puerto Vallarta. Okay, now this was on the 16th of October 2021. All right. Now, the week before, on the 8th of October, they'd broken into my apartment in my Airbnb in Sayulita, which is another little resort town in the similar area of Mexico. Okay, and they broke into the apartment there. They wiped my laptop hard drive. Completely wiped the laptop, and and they deleted my entire Google account, particularly because it had all my emails, right, which was correspondence between me and the police and tons of other people, and also my Google Drive, which had all of the evidence stored on it. All right, so they were hoping to wipe out the evidence. And they wanted to take me out as well as the evidence, obviously. All right, so basically I knew what they were planning. I knew they were still there. I knew they were up to something, and I had to kind of figure out what it was. So I had to flush them out. Okay, and the way I flushed them out just by getting on the gear, basically getting on the drugs. All right, so every time I get on the drugs, they show themselves in some way, shape, or form. Not directly, obviously, but they pop their heads up and try and catch me. All right. And that's exactly what happened. All right, so I got online on the apps, organised some gear. It was ice, methamphetamine. I mean, I hadn't had any gear since June 2020. Dominican Republic was the last time I'd had any gear. All right, so I was never a drug addict. I was just a recreational user, and in these particular instances, I used it on purpose to flush them out. All right, I wouldn't recommend it. All right, certainly not a safe method of operation, but it is what it is, and I did what I had to do. Okay, so basically, I got online, organised some gear. The second I do that, they know because they're in my phone. Well, they're always in my phone, whether it's directly through a SIM card or whether it's indirectly through backdoor through Google Play, or whether they've got a clone of the phone. They know exactly everything I'm doing on my phone, all messages sent and received, all video calls, everything. They can hear it all, they listen to it all, they read it all. Okay, so I got online, organised some gear, and then went out, got on it, came back the next day. I didn't come back that day, came back the next day to the hostel because I didn't want to go back off my face. And sure enough, that day they put an undercover cop in my dorm room in the hostel. All right, how do I know that? Well, the guy in the bed above me, he got moved out of his bed, and he told me he was moved out of his bed, and they said there was another booking, but nobody came. And also this guy didn't look like he belonged there. He was like a 50s, maybe early 50s. He had like short hair like mine, but grey, if I remember rightly. And he was quite stocky. It just didn't look like he belonged in a hostel, you know what I mean? And anyway, once I pegged that he was a cop, I moved out of there into a private room, and then the next thing you know, they put two undercover cops in the private room behind me. And so, I mean, I knew all this was going on, and I went out that night with a whole crew of people from the hostel, and they all disappeared just out of nowhere. They just randomly disappeared. I'm like, that's a bit strange. Where'd they all go? But I think they were told to disappear and stay away from me. All right. So, and I'll talk about this in detail in the full episode. I'm trying to get through it quickly here. All right. But anyway, I went back to the hostel about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know, 10, 15 minutes after I've got back, those two undercover cops are in the room behind me, turned up. And I also saw someone in the stairwell. I could see some light in the stairwell, like a phone screen or something. So I thought, right, they're up to something here. I thought they were going to pinch me, and I'm pretty sure they were. So anyway, I pulled out my phone and just went bang straight Facebook Live. And I just said, what are you going to do, guys? What are you going to do? And pretty much went crazy on the phone for 20, 25 minutes, making an absolute lunatic out of myself. But I don't care how crazy I look, because I was right. All right, they were right there. They were going to grab me. I'm not sure what they were going to do, whether they were going to gas the room I was in, or whether they were just going to, breach the room and set me up, like breach the room and grab me and plant some drugs, because I didn't have any drugs on me that night. All right. But anyway, I don't know exactly what they were going to do, but they were going to do something. And so I just broadcast everything on Facebook Live for about 25 minutes. And they ran away because I saw them drive off. They had they had a four-wheel drive parked just down the block, black or blue, I think it was. I saw them drive off. And then nobody in the hostel came out at all. And pretty sure they rang the local police to come and get me, because I was obviously going off like a lunatic. Anyway, I ran out of there, I got my stuff, I ran out of there. I got my wallet, sorry. I already had my phone on me. Got my wallet, ran out of there, and then I took off down the street. And the next thing you know, the state police were circling the block trying to find me. And I was like, yeah, here we go. So I wasn't happy about that at all, because I didn't trust any of them. So I managed to evade them. And then, by this time, the sun had come up. And I got picked up on the street by local police, who had apparently been called by the hostel because I was behaving like a lunatic. Right, they picked me up, took me to the local police station, and kept me there for like 12 hours and then let me go. So they were obviously told to let me go. And that was the end of that. That was that entrapment. All right, so I survived that. And then they spent about the next week following me around Zona Romantica in Puerto, Vallarta. As I jumped from a few different places, they were still following me around for the next week. And then they finally stopped when I moved into another hostel. I mean, I was avoiding hostels because I didn't want to cause any trouble to any other people. I was just staying in hotels for a couple of days at a time. But I finally went back to another hostel, which was about a week later, and things had calmed down. And I'd stopped using any gear, obviously, as well, so there were no drugs by that stage, so there was no reason for them to try anything else in this new hostel. I certainly wasn't going to allow that to happen. Okay, so that was the end of entrapment number 4 in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico in October 2021. Right then, so that brings us to the 5th and final drug entrapment attempt. All right, there were more attempts by them over the years, but I only took part in these 5. I wish I never had to take part in 5, to be honest. I expected it to be resolved long before it got to this stage, and yet here we are. Okay, so after Mexico, I literally thought it would be all over. I sent them a detailed proposal for a settlement agreement between us, a deal where I'd stop coming after them, they'd stop coming after me. All they had to do was compensate me for what they'd done. And I was literally hopeful that they would take that deal, because I thought at that stage they would have realised there's no way they're going to get to me. No matter what they tried, they kept failing. And yet, sadly, they never took that deal, and here we are. All right, so here we are at number 5. So their response to me offering them a deal was to try and entrap me a 5th time in El Salvador. All right, so fast forward now, 2022, March 2022, El Tunco Beach, El Salvador. All right, so I got out of Mexico into Guatemala. I'd spent a month in Guatemala, then I'd gone from Guatemala to El Tunco in El Salvador, and I was literally there about 3 months, I think. All right. So it's now March 2022. So clearly, because I've been spending quite a bit of time there, they were able to really plan this next attack against me, and it's a shame, because they involved a friend of mine again and destroyed that relationship, and obviously caused him a great deal of stress as well. All right, so basically what happened there was they got to a friend of mine who I'd party with on the weekends down at the beach. Caught him with some cocaine, and then forced him to become an informant against me. And then what they did was they told him to get me to sell some cocaine at the beach club, and then they catch me doing that. All right, so he came down to the resort. It was the Hostel Tortuga Viajera in El Tunco Beach, El Salvador. All right. He came to the hostel, him and his cousin, who was an undercover cop called Armando. All right, so they turned up together. He came down with 20 bags of cocaine, and they were like half-gram bags, so 10 grams. And the plan was to have me sell the bags of cocaine in the beach club, and I pretended to agree because I knew it was an entrapment and I needed to obviously let it play out, but without actually getting involved in selling the cocaine, so I didn't get caught. All right, so in order to flush them out this time, what I did was, on the Friday night we all went out together, but nobody took any cocaine with them. I said to him, I'm not carrying it, and he's like, oh, I'm not carrying it. I'm not carrying it. All right, so we went out that night, nobody took any cocaine out. All right, and but then what I said was, that night I said, oh, it's all right, we'll bring it out tomorrow, Saturday, and we'll sell it then. All right, now on the Saturday I didn't even go out. You know, I stayed home. I was actually sick. You know, literally I was physically sick, had a bug. All right, but that would never normally stop me from going out in the old days. But I didn't go out because I had no intention of selling the cocaine. All right, when they came home that night, I said to them, did you sell that coke? And he's like, oh, no. And I said, why didn't you get Armando to do it? And he said, oh, Armando's no good at it. And then he said, oh, it's better if you do it because you're a tourist, it's safer. So I knew that that was an entrapment attempt. All right? The funniest part of that whole thing was when Armando was pretending to snort cocaine off of a key in the bedroom, and he wasn't snorting it at all. He was fucking like tipping his head to the side. He dropped the little bit of coke and then he pretended to snort it. All right, so that's what happened there. And then the next day they left, and the next week I left out of El Salvador. All right, so there was no chance of them entrapping me there. And that was the 5th drug entrapment attempt, and well, that was the final one. You know, I mean, like I say, they've tried again since then, but I've simply not engaged. Okay, so I don't need to keep playing that game. I mean, I've got enough evidence against them. I'm certainly not taking the risk of playing that game again because it's too dangerous a game to play. All right, and I don't need to. I don't need the evidence. I've got all the evidence I need, and I honestly expected they would have already settled by now. So I can't believe we're still going, but here we are. All right, so there you go. That's the 5 international drug entrapment attempts. That was the last one in March 2022, and where are we now? November 2024, and we're still going. All right, but hopefully with the continual release of these episodes, this will be resolved soon. And like I said, all I'm seeking is closure and compensation. I wish I didn't have to shoot these videos. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. I can't do anything else other than focus on this at the moment. And I'd really like to put this behind me, get back to work, get back to business, get back to life. All right, so on that note, folks, if you've watched, thank you very much. This has been quite a long one. I don't expect you would have all watched it, but it needed to be done, okay, and now it's done. So on that note, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, folks. Bye.